Welcome to the Inspire Show. For those of you who are new, the Inspire Show is part of the overall Awakening Village membership program. It's a free membership program designed to be free forever. And the idea here is to really bring people together that are on their path of living their soul's journey, their soul's path, their heart's true desire, and to help them, inspire them, motivate them, keep them on track. And we have a number of things. Today's our monthly interview where we interview change leaders from around the world, and they share with us some of their journey and their inspiration. We also, on the alternative Wednesdays, we meet for our online Awakening Cafe, where we really gather together to take an hour out of our day or out of our week in the middle of the week, noon on Wednesday. And so we can reconnect to ourselves and to each other, to our tribe, people that are going to support us on our path. And that 1 hour a week can make a difference in your life and your work and maintain your path. The other part of the Awakening Village also has a number of free resources on the Soul Sanctuary. So once you join in, I'll have all the information below on this recording so you can link in. But there's all sorts of videos, meditations, resources, tools, and templates for you. And finally, we also have a Change Leader Network where we connect with each other, share ideas beyond this, but also on the Facebook group. And then as we're developing, where we can cross-promote each other, share resources, that type of thing. All right, so I want to get started, and first to welcome Joshua Smith from London. Yay, this is awesome. So cool. So I'm going to just do a little, you guys can read there, but I'm going to see how my reading is. So Joshua has an unbelievable bio, so you can see here, but it's just amazing. So he's going to tell us a little bit about the work that he's done and how he got there. But Joshua is a managing director of Adapt Faster. It's a boutique consulting firm in London. And he's a behavioral specialist, trainer, and a coach specializing in neuroscience-informed approaches to mindfulness and resilience. He currently coaches executives and teams globally. And he leads courses in emotional resilience, social intelligence, and authentic leadership. He's been recently appointed a leadership fellow at the Society of Leadership Fellows in College of St. George in Windsor Castle, and is assistant director at the EMDR Centre in London, which I hope he'll explain a little bit about what that is today. Joshua has a BA in economics, and originally actually from the States, I think from LA, and has completed studies in the University of Oxford in mindfulness and neuroscience. As well, Joshua has trained as a trauma therapist with sensory motor psychotherapy, with the Sensory Motor Psychotherapy Institute, EMDR Centre London, and completed a teacher training in yoga and the traumatized body under the supervision of legendary research in the field of PTSD. And I'm not going to try to say his name. You guys can read it. Joshua also is co-author of The Happy Teacher, 11 R's Every Teacher Should Know. As a result of this work, he was invited to the White House reception to greet Queen Elizabeth II. Holy cow. That's really, really impressive. Awesome. So I'm just going to unmute you, Joshua. And
Great.
Yeah, so welcome and thank you so much. That is really fantastic.
Great to be here. So Lee, I'd like to start with just right off the bat, as I like to do with just groups, is to put us in a really sort of resource place, if that's okay.
I love it.
Yeah. So the idea is, I think we'll do it more since this is the Inspire Show. I'd like to do something more inspiring. So how does having a 30-second yogasm sound? Does that sound inspiring?
Sure.
I mean, feedback is a good thing.
Yeah. You know what, Joshua? Sorry, we're on a little bit of a delay. I guess it's coming across the pond. And it's just breaking in and out just a bit. So I'll just watch for you to stop talking and then I'll talk. Sorry.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. So I'd like you to consider, like, if you hold your hands like this and imagine you're holding all the tension. I mean, I realize it's still midday there, but there might be some tension you experience or something you're going to have to do at the end of the day. So I call this the weightlifter. So if you have your hands like this, and imagine all the stress, just put it all in your hands right now. So your hands are almost shaking. And then lift your hands up over your head. And as you do, just exhale with ha.
Ha!
Yeah, and back down again. And imagine that stress, whatever's going to stress you out. Maybe there's a phone call, there's a difficult conversation, whatever it is, lift that stress up once more and go ha.
Ha!
And again, lift it up this time. This time say yes. Here we go. Go yes.
Yes! I'm the only one you can hear.
One more time. Just go. One more time. Just go yes.
Yes!
Good, good. And then just take your hands. It's called a bouncing breath. Just inhale with the palms up toward the sky. Inhale. And then palms are down, and then just exhale through the mouth. Very good. And just bring your hands all the way down and let them rest in your lap. And just take a few seconds to tune into the feet, the spine, the neck, shoulders, and head. Just tuning into the body. And a deep breath in through your nose, and an exhale through the mouth. Great. So just an opportunity just to get centered and motivated. And let's get inspired.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. That's great. Love it. So maybe we can start out with just describing a little bit about the work that you do right now.
Well, so yeah, I started with that. So I work a lot with the body. That's it's called embodied techniques. I've trained a lot in the study of the mind, and there's just a lot of research out that is confirming that stress is really something that stays in the body. And my particular area of focus in therapy is trauma. And I had a very interesting experience with that, where I was doing workshops when I was working in America and living in America. And we were in New York, and we were doing a workshop in something called bioenergetics, which is a very sort of fiery breathing technique, and you're getting the body into very, very high states of catharsis. And the idea is to charge your body up like a fire breath, and you're like, really charge the body, and then you just let go, right? In terms of a primal yell, or like something like a voice or something like that. So it's a orchestrated technique designed to help us sort of break through those areas where we're stuck. And so I was leading a group, and there was a participant whose body started to spontaneously go into these postures, just completely involuntarily. And the postures weren't premeditated. They were reactive. It was almost like her body was replaying something. Like her hands were like that, and then her body would literally flip off the mat, and she'd go on the other side, and it would be in a fetal position. And it was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And so this is in the middle of a workshop with over 20 people, by the way. So I had assistants, and they really freaked out, and they came to me, "Oh my gosh, Joshua." So I ran over, because it's a big room, and I'm watching the group, and then my assistants, they get me, and I don't know what happened, but something just came over me, and I was just really calm. So I literally sat next to her, and I just heard a voice like I'm speaking to you now that just said, "Right, just look into her eyes." And I went, okay. So I just looked into her eyes, and her eyes, she was there with me. The first thing to check is if she's having a seizure. So to make sure that she's not swallowing her tongue or something like that. But she was very present with me, and that's why I knew I wasn't alarmed. Anyway, it turns out that just my staying with her and saying, "Everything is okay, I'm right here. You're not alone, I'm not leaving, I'm right here." And the process went on for about 12, 15 minutes, as I remember. And then her body naturally slowly calmed down. And then it was just this real emotional release at the end of just tears. And I had no idea what was happening. But again, I just had sort of stayed with this voice that was saying, just stay with her and just make sure you are looking into her eyes. I didn't know why. Anyway, so we had a break, and And so I went to check on her, and she debriefed me afterwards that she had been tortured, and she had been captured as a youth into an Asian country and into basically a communist death camp. And she and her cousin were leaving school one day, and they walked into some type of student protest, and the militia came out of nowhere and just started shooting everybody and captured she and her cousin. Her cousin died, unfortunately, but she was able to eventually escape. And for over 30 years, she had been living in this terror as if the government agents were going to come and find her. And so her body had been holding on to this trauma, and it was literally in her body. It wasn't in her mind. I mean, there were thoughts in her mind, but in that experience, it taught me that just being present with someone, just being able to stay with someone compassionately and let them know that they're not alone, that they're connected, with someone that really cares, is enough to actually get people through some of the worst experiences. And she said to me that one of the things that she said when she kept looking into my eyes, and she said that you were my angel, right? Because if you think about it, when something like that happens, I mean, God forbid that would happen to one of us, but it does happen in the world, and people feel isolated and alone. They're completely left alone, and that's the worst feeling in the world, is to feel isolated. And that's what trauma does. Trauma is a very isolating experience. And so I had to study this area because this was back in 1999 or 2000, and there wasn't a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder then. And so really my work is about helping people get through various experiences, not as bad as trauma, for example, but even shame. We carry a lot of shame around, and shame is in the body. It's in the cells, and we have a tendency to maybe think of shame as something that is scary or something that, it's something that we might do to others, like we might blame other people and so forth. But shame can be when it's internalized, meaning that when someone believes that they're bad or they're defective or there's something wrong with them, which a number of people I find do, then that is in the body. That's not just a thought, right? It's in the body. It's in the physiology. It's in the nervous system. And so the work I do really helps people to go deep fast and then be able to develop the resourcefulness and the confidence to move forward in every area of their life. Because I work with the body, basically, and body techniques. That's the term.
Very good. Great, very moving story. Thank you for sharing that. And a couple of questions that come up from that story. One is, if you could explain a little bit about how that changed your trajectory of your soul's path, in terms of what you were doing where. And the other thing, maybe if you can also explain a little bit the difference between your work and what we traditionally think of as mindfulness, or what we traditionally think of changing thoughts. If you could explain that maybe a little bit more. I think
that's great.
Parallel. Yeah. I think those two questions go together, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, so you please stop me, because I will talk on about this, right? Because this is right.
Yeah, and if anyone has some questions on the side, they can put them up there too. And I think Joshua, you can see them on the right.
Yeah, hopefully.
If you click on the chat button, you can see them as well. But I'll mention.
If you see, just read them out. Just read them out.
Okay.
You can just stop me and just read them out. Love questions.
Okay, awesome.
So so I didn't start off going into becoming a therapist. I didn't even know about bioenergetics before 1998. I was a technology entrepreneur in Los Angeles. I'm actually from Washington, D.C. originally, and I spent a lot of time in New York, but I was living and working out in L.A. at the time. And L.A. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, you have bad traffic in Montreal, I'm sure, but L.A. has the worst traffic in the world. I'm sorry. It just does. So there's a very famous, probably the world's largest parking lot. It's called the 405, which goes north to south in Southern California. It takes you basically from Orange County upwards to past LA and all that stuff. Anyway, so I would have to go on the 405. And I was stuck in traffic one day, literally. And I was making a list of my, it was a course I was doing, and the course was on commitments or something. And so I decided to do my homework while I'm stuck in traffic. And it was on commitments. So I started making my list of commitments, and I was really bored. Like, like what I'm committed to. Because on my list was like payroll, budgets,
taxes. Oh, no.
Right. I was bored. So something just said, Josh, you know what? Make a list of what you're really passionate about. And I went, okay. Literally, and I'm talking a legal pad. I'm talking a yellow legal pad. I'm not talking like, a note card. I'm talking like, the long, almost like A4 size, sheet. So I'm feeling, and I'm really getting excited. My energy totally changes. And I'm listening to Depeche Mode at the time, which is totally energizing. So I'm making this list, and I'm going, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm not doing any of the things that are on like the top 10 things I have on this list. Like ballroom dancing, yoga, reading more, dancing again. I mean, all the things, like I wasn't doing those. And I just said to myself, if I were because we would buy and sell companies, right? So I would say, if I were a company, I would be upside down. In other words, my liabilities would be greater than, if passions are my assets, my heart's assets, and I'm not doing any of these, I don't have any assets. So I have more liabilities and more commitments than I do actually things that I love to do that I'm doing. So that was it. About 2 months later, I sold my company. I got out, and I decided to pursue those things on my passions list. So that's how I ended up finding my way into therapy and becoming a therapist and so forth. And because I did things like African dance and African drumming, those things are on my list. Meditation, more yoga, and so forth. I came at, and this is back around the late 90s. I mean, mindfulness wasn't very popular then. It was more maybe Zen or meditation, or TM was really big. Yeah. But I ran into in terms of bioenergetics, the power of the body, like I shared with that experience earlier with the client, to transform our lives, to transform our mind, basically, when we're able to access body states and hold a place of what I now know. I didn't know it then, but what I now know is dual process, dual awareness. If I can keep my mind open in an observer way, in yoga terms, it's called the witness. If I can watch my experience, like I'm watching a Broadway show, and stay present to the feelings in my body, or the unpleasantness, or the emotions, that actually what happens is my body can complete an experience. It tends to release. That's the concept of emotions, energy and motion. If I allow energy to move, then my body can actually reach a sense of completion in something. And so in terms of the mindfulness work, I've noticed in MBCT in particular, there is a lot of focus on, the states of being able to hold that place of presence and that place of non-judgment and non-seeking. The problem, there's a bit of a problem in that that I found as a trauma therapist, is that sometimes some of the feelings are very, very unpleasant, and they can come up really quickly. When some people meditate, if there's trauma, then people tend to get overwhelmed when they close their eyes, or it's very difficult not to judge. And I think it is the term non-judgment in particular that is difficult for trauma clients or anyone that's in a high state of anxiety, because the amygdala, the center of the emotional center, the seat of our emotions, the fire alarm in the brain, its entire job is to make judgments about life or death. And this is evolutionary. This goes back to the mammalian brain and so forth. So it's hard to tell the amygdala not to be worried about something if you haven't looked at it before. Do you see what I mean? In other words, it helps to be able to go back and be able to hold the space of presence, but also have the courage and the skill to be able to stay with whatever it is. And it's okay to judge, right? Because if there was a perpetrator, right? That's a perpetrator is a perpetrator. You can't say, oh, he didn't mean to do it, and no, it's a perpetrator, and the amygdala is not going to let that go easily. So in the work that I do, I use a bit of mindfulness, but I also use eye movements, breathing, tapping, and various other cognitive techniques to help clients really zip through whatever it is that's stopping them by being okay with whatever judgments. Or the other thing that I had arguments with at the Oxford Mindfulness Center was about non-seeking. Like the whole concept of not seeking. Of course, in a Buddhist, if you're in a Buddhist monastery, what is there to seek? You gave up everything. You don't have anything to seek. But if you try to roll this out into executives and you talk about non-seeking, well, profit and loss is based on seeking. So how is that going to work? And I think this is where mindfulness runs into problems in businesses, in corporations. So
I agree, and in life as well, because I really believe as a spirit on a soul's path, we're always evolving, and part of that is evolving and is seeking to the next level. And it is a double-edged sword where we can get so much into the grasping for the next that we're not present. And I understand that, but there has to be that balance. That's a really, it's a really new, fresh perspective that I don't know if a lot of us have heard about before. And I'd like if you could, and again, if anyone has some questions, I just see one from Susan, so I'll read it in a second. But with regard to, eye movement, you said breathing, tapping, if you could explain just briefly eye movement and EDMR. EDMR, yeah. And also, you also had launched kickboxing.
Yoga boxing.
Yoga boxing, and just explain some so there's the fine movements, and then there's the bigger movements and some of the movements you did, and just explain a little bit more about that trauma, and I'll read Susan's question here, and if anyone else has any, please post them there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we just did yoga boxing with this. Right. So, and if anyone wants some of the research basis of it, Amy Cuddy, who has a really powerful, popular TED talk on power poses, and there's one talk, it's not TED, it's another talk she does where she's standing like Wonder Woman, like she has these Wonder Woman boots on, and it's what happens when you put your body in a powerful position. And part of what happens is that when we experience stress or anxiety, particularly if you think about depression, for anyone that works with depression or has a history of depression in the community, that depression is something that is a very isolating and collapsing experience. So the body literally, the head is down, the shoulders are forward. Maybe you can't see so well now, but basically, if you can imagine just someone really, really collapsing inside, when the shoulders roll forward and the spine is very arched, there's a lot of collapse in the chest. It's hard to breathe, right? So if you experience that now, I mean, hopefully whoever's driving, please don't do this, but whoever's in the car, right? But basically, you just drop your head right now, just look down and roll your shoulders forward, right? And just really just let the weight of your head just collapse downward. And just take a moment and tune into your diaphragm and your chest, and just notice how much movement there is basically in the intercostal muscles and the ribs and the diaphragm. There's not much, right? So now just to come out of that, just roll your shoulders up, your head up, right? Roll your shoulders back, look up, chest open, and now tune into your rib cage and tune into your diaphragm. And you can see there's a lot more freedom to really move and to breathe, right? So this is essentially, these are embodied states. So our emotions reflect in states of our body, right? So yoga boxing is all about creating, it's a series of movements. It's yoga, boxing, African dance, aerobics, and Tai Chi that I put together as a way. It started off, actually, I think I shared this with Leanne a week or so ago. It's actually kind of a fluke because I don't know if anyone's taken an African dance class, like an authentic African dance class, but they're from Senegal. Yeah, they're fantastic. The thing is, I used to think it's because their English wasn't very good, but basically they start the class out, they just start. There's no introduction like a aerobics class. Okay, come on class, let's all come to, no, there's none of that. The music just starts, the drums start, and the teachers, and they just start doing something. So you have to follow. You don't even know, if it's your first time in the class, you don't know what's going on. So I would do this week upon week, and they would add choreography. I mean, I'm in the middle of like some kind of dance troupe or something, so I'm trying to keep up because I don't want to look like the black guy who can't dance, right? So my rep is on the line here. I can't not dance. It's against my genetic code. I have to be able to do this. We watch Roots, right? So anyway. So what I started to do was I'd sneak home right after the class. I'd zip home, and I'd slow the movements down like Tai Chi. Whatever the choreography was, I'd slow it down. And that was the only way I could remember it, right? I'd slow the steps down. I'd go step after step as if I was underwater. And I started to notice that as I was taking these postures, it was like yoga. And I was like, this is incredible. So I kept doing it over and over again. And that's basically how yoga boxing was created. Was out of my need to find a way to choreography in my African dance classes.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's a workout I did, and it became really popular. Yeah. So that's yoga boxing.
Created a DVD series.
Yeah,
are you still selling those? Are they still available for people?
Yeah, they are. I'm going to re-release it because everything now is streaming. So what I've decided to do with a group is we're going to start putting stuff. We have a plan basically to start putting stuff onto streaming. But I use yoga boxing quite a bit in my therapy practice because it is about unlocking the stuck states in the body. Like what we just did, that small experiment where we just went yes, right? Yeah. It's literally unlocking these sort of blocked states in the body. So it's a coaching methodology as well as a movement system, which is why we want to sort of look at it. And I say we because, again, I want to work with a group too.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. And the word, by the way, the word yogasm came from a magazine here in London. That's how they characterized the workout. They said, yoga boxing is yogasmic, right?
I love it. That's great. So just wanted to ask you a quick question here that Susan has asked, because your description of how you came about the work that you do is really fascinating. And I think also for some people, and either today or in the future, listening to this recording, it's going to hit really home for them because a lot of people have experienced trauma and PTSD and so forth. So her question, I'm just going to read it exactly. Once you had PTSD, do you have it always? Will it always show up off and on all your life when triggers show up? Will they always bring you up the anxiety, the body reactions, or can you completely get over it eventually, especially if you work on it?
Yes, you can definitely heal PTSD. That is certain. That is 100% certain you can do it. The research says this, and all the successful trauma treatments like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, are very successful treatments. Sensory motor psychotherapy is a very good treatment for it. So the reason why it gets stuck in the body is because what I mentioned before, we live in a very structured society. We live in a world where we basically around a lot of concrete. We're a lot of buildings. If we think back to 100,000 years ago, to the hunter-gatherer tribes, there weren't nearly as many people that we were around, right? So we were in groups of about maybe 25. That was a big group, 25 people, and we were in nature. So if we had really adverse experiences or frightening experiences, we had the environment, right, as a way to physically be able to release anything that's held in the body. But we also had each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part about healing trauma, I find, that is one of the most important aspects, is the relational component.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you know, we had small tribes, so we trusted each other. There was a lot of love, you know, a lot of compassion. So a lot of theories are that basically trauma didn't exist 100,000 years ago because our bodies were doing natural things.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're in an environment where we can't really, if something happened to us, and there's the thing with trauma to understand, Susan, is that there are two things that happens. There is the what happened, as in the terrible experience that happened in the past. But there's also what wanted to happen and didn't happen. That's the part that shapes the PTSD, is that the body didn't get a chance to release or to take action, right? So in the trauma world, this is called the missing experience. And we all have a missing experience. We all have one. Whether it's from our childhood or you know, a really difficult incident. For that client I mentioned earlier at the beginning, is that her missing experience was having a compassionate face with her when the trauma happened, when she was being tortured, right? There was no one there that was compassionate. There were no eyes there. There was no presence. There was no loving sense of, for her to hold on to. And that's what helped her to heal, right? So PTSD is something that can absolutely be healed. And obviously it's something that it's good to see a professional or someone who's trained in techniques to do it. But also it's something to think about in terms of if someone is working on trauma or anxiety even, is what is it they really need, you know, and is it safe to sort of go out and find ways to get those needs met. And I find this is where shame comes in, right? Shame comes in where it's not okay to you know, to be angry. Like I just did a workshop the other day, and there's some stereotypes. So women have a lot of permission for sadness, but not a lot of permission for anger or expression of anger.
Mm-hmm.
Like if certain women express anger, then they're considered unwomanly, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, this, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Now that could be cultural. That can be a cultural reference,
mm-hmm.
right? Because I've noticed some cultures are okay with women being angry.
I want to join that girl.
Be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, exactly.
But the flip side of that is that men have a lot of permission for anger,
Mm-hmm.
but not a lot of permission to express sadness.
Right. Yeah.
And you can see this is what keeps us locked in these what's called maladaptive. You know, these sort of negative patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And there's without a lot of permission to get out of that pattern. So if someone's needs are, for a woman, for example, she just needs to be in a safe place where she can just express her anger safely and not be judged for it. Well, that can be healing for her.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a man, if a safe space for him is being able to express his sadness in a compassionate space and not be judged for it, that could help him to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I run men's groups before, so this is mostly men's groups. It's funny, like the toughest guys in the world, they're really just seeking permission to just be sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible, or to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And once they have that permission, it's like they feel fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know if any of you all run women's groups. So I've never been.
And I know Andrew, who's on, also does men's group, and I think experiences some of the same things. Most of us here are in women's groups for sure, right. You know, or part of it, but there certainly is more and more of a need for men's groups, and I'm really happy that you guys are doing that work for us as well as for the men, for the men in our lives and so forth. But It's just fascinating, the work that you're doing, and it's really obvious how you're helping people. And I think that at the end, we'll talk a little bit about if anyone wants to get directly in touch with you, and I think you have something that you wanted to share in terms of an offer to
Oh, yeah.
as well. So we'll get to that just in a moment, but I just wanted to ask about, what did Zena say here? Tim McGraw, Grown Men Don't Cry, great song. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's very
All
good,
right.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, just a little bit says, everybody here are really on this call trying to do their soul's work, and all of us know how challenging it can be at times. And I was just wondering if you could share just a little bit with us today about you've told us about your journey, but some of the one or two of the major challenges you had, and because it's obvious where you are right now, it's so worth it that you got to where you are and you're helping people. You're constantly evolving, growing, and learning, and that's obvious. But I'm sure it wasn't easy to get to where you are, and I'm sure there was some challenge. And I think just to motivate and inspire others, again, either on the call or later, maybe one or two things that you did and how you overcame that to continue on your path.
Thanks so much. First of all, thank you. I'd like to express gratitude for just you giving me this opportunity to share it, Leanne, with the community.
Gosh, it's my pleasure.
You're very lovely. It's really nice.
Thank
because
you.
I live in a country where
which country are you talking about?
I'm talking about the UK. I'm talking about the UK. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there right now. Okay,
we're not going to go to Trump, okay?
We're not going to go. No. Let's not go there, please.
We're in such a high vibration state now.
We've been in the right vibe, so let's not, Anyway, so it's interesting. So I just did a EMDR training. We train other therapists. So I just completed a training this weekend. And so two quick stories. And of course, they won't be quick because I'll keep talking, so please shut me up. So I always share in the trauma training with other therapists is that how the body, Bessel van der Kolk is the person's name, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. So he's Dutch originally, but he's a Harvard-trained psychiatrist in Boston. They do a lot of, they do the pioneering work in PTSD. So Google Bessel van der Kolk and, you'll have some good reading on that. But anyway, he talks about the body keeps score, how the body remembers. And again, like this case, this client I mentioned at the beginning, how does that happen? How does trauma stay in the body like that, and so forth? So I had an experience where I was 7 and I nearly drowned. And it's one of those experiences where I remember it, like I'm recalling it now as I'm speaking to you, and I can still have the feeling of being pulled down. What it was I was a good swimmer, but it was a man-made lake, and they had some kind of, there's like a drainage pump or something, and it would somehow a fluke thing, and it was literally like I'm swimming with my friends, we're splashing each other and so forth, and we're in about water, I don't know, 20, 25 feet deep or something, and all of a sudden I can feel like a hand almost pulling me down. It was a bizarre feeling, like some kind of spirit. It was weird, like for no reason I was being pulled down. And it was like a hand just pulling me down. And it was just like, I can just remember, literally as I'm recalling it, looking up and seeing the sunlight through the translucent green water. And I could just remember, I said to myself, I'm going to die, right? And when you get to that point, it's literally either you're going to succumb, right? Or you're going to fight, right? Well, I fought. So I popped myself back out of the water, and eventually my cousin pulled me out. So here's the thing, I'm a good swimmer, so I still love water and everything else, right? So that in and of itself was not a traumatic memory for me. What happened was that I basically lied to my parents to go to the lake. Right? I don't know what I told them, but whatever it is, it wasn't, I'm going to the lake and going swimming with my friends. So when we got home and I begged my cousin not to tell my parents the story. Of course he had to, because he's older and he had to, I guess he didn't want to be kicked out of the house. So he told them, and then they punished me. And okay, I get it, punishment. But it was right at the point of my 8th birthday. And they forbade me from having my 8th birthday.
Wow.
And here's the thing about that. My parents never agreed on anything. And they argued incessantly about everything. And they agreed on that punishment. And that's, to this day, I really look back. And by the way, my parents divorced 2 years later. But the point is that for 4 decades after that, it's not difficulty celebrating my birthday, but birthdays weren't a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody else's birthday was a big deal, but mine, I work on my birthdays, right? Some people celebrate their birthday. They take 3 days. They take the week off, right? But but me, I'm like, I work, right? So it wasn't until I started to notice that birthdays aren't a big deal that I started to go back to, this is something that's trapped in my body. Mm. And this is what I mean about the body keeps score. It wasn't the swimming, because I was able to mobilize a reaction. I was able to fight and get out of the water, right? I was able to kick my legs, pull myself out of that sort of undertow. Mm-hmm. But it was the fact that my parents, who I trusted, sort of gave me this severe punishment, and I nearly died. So imagine the shame of a child that says, oh, so I nearly die and I get punished for my birthday. I'm not allowed to have a birthday. Therefore, that must mean I'm a bad person, right? So that's how trauma works. That's how shame works. And that's what most of us are carrying around. Mm-hmm. I'm a bad person. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not rich enough. Whatever it is, it's like I'm not enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so this gets trapped in the body. And this is something that I started to always go back to. And I made a determination that I would not just heal myself, but help others to heal these voices of I'm not space enough, whatever that is.
That's fascinating. And one of the things that happens too is it manifests in different areas. And as we're talking about our work and bringing our gifts to the world, that trauma comes up there as well. This is what I see constantly with
Absolutely.
Clients. And so it stops us in many different ways in relationships, which it seems a bit more obvious that it may affect our health or may affect our relationships, but it also affects our ability to manifest our highest potential in the world. And that's, I guess, why you work with executives and coaches and different teams and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we make things up in our heads all the time. If we believe this stuff for too long, it really is it's literally soul destroying. Mm-hmm. It literally causes us to collapse inward. So here's the other thing. Now, this thing really changed my life, where the short version is that my father and I was working for my father, and basically we did a deal where I would do a business in Southern California, to make a long story short. And we ended up having some disagreement, and he ended up suing me. I mean, he's just like, I'm your son, right? Anyway, so he sues me, right? So of course I sue back, and we're in court. This is not a joke, really. Wait a minute, hang on. He sued me for $60 million, okay?
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. I'm not talking about small claims court here. Oh, I'm not talking, right. I'm talking, yeah. So I had, anyway, long story short, we settled, and, his company went bankrupt and whatever, and I continued on. But I decided that I can't live like this. So that's what really motivated me. I'm like, how could something like this happen? For the life of me, I couldn't figure that one out. So that's another story, but that changed my life. So that's how I ended up in this trajectory. It literally changed my trajectory to where I want to make sure that people, if bad things, I can't stop bad things from happening in the world, obviously, but I can help people be resourceful enough and resilient enough so that they have the strategies and the skills to be able to deal with challenges and adversities when they come up. So that's what all my work is based on.
Amazing. And just one last question. I'm going to just give you a chance to think about it, and I'm just going to say the comments because there are not as many questions as comments. I just want to read for everyone. So the last question is really about where you're heading next in terms of your work, if there's anything kind of new on the horizon or that type of thing. So just for 1 second, I'm just going to read Zena just talked about, men don't cry. And then Andrew mentioned that he has his, he says, our group is men talking like women every Wednesday morning at 7. We share everything without judgment. That's awesome. And Susan said, thanks, Joshua. And Doris said, that's nice to know, Andrew. And then Dahlia said, thanks, Josh. Can you please send more information about men's group? I don't think you have it online yet, do you?
No, we don't. That's the thing. I mean, that's one of the things about being in the UK is I've had to really shift my focus on, because it's a culture that I have to really adapt to. It's not my native culture, so I've had to sort of. So I'm working with some groups. I'm in the midst of something now where we might be doing something in the probably next year, 2019. We'll be doing something.
Great. And then Zena said, Zena said, an hour is not enough. I agree. It isn't enough. We are coming close to the end. And then Susan said, would like to know when your yoga boxing is released online, for sure.
Yes, I will let you know.
So if anyone has any more questions, just quickly put them there. And then just that last question, is there something that you're working on kind of in the future? Well, you just mentioned something about possibly online next year.
Yeah. So we're looking at putting together some streaming workouts for yoga boxing. And and the thing was with technology, it's really great because you can do all these great things, but the question is, how do you package these things?
Yeah.
Right? How do you, and that's been literally the thing I think stopping us is, do you go with an app? Do you just do it online? Do you just, populate YouTube with your own channel? I mean, these are just, these are social media and web strategies that other people are much more skilled at than me. So this is part of the process that I decided, rather than try to rush, is just to go with the flow, literally, and have an intention for it to happen. Yeah. But also be open to how it's going to unfold. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and
I just have to say that a couple of people just said, and Leanne can help you with that. Of course, I think he knows we want to help each other, and
exactly.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. I'm not super skilled on the amazing mass market strategies of social media. I'm more of the visioning and how to package it in a more of a strategy perspective. But thank you very much, Senna and Doris. I could
absolutely. No, I know.
A lot of these guys are my clients too, so they're awesome fans. So
yeah, that's great. I'm a fan too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So that's one thing. There is a podcast that I am putting together as we speak with a colleague of mine who is one of the former heads at the Oxford Mindfulness Centre, who he and I really get along. So we're looking at that as a project. So this is April, so probably toward the autumn. Mm-hmm. And then another colleague of mine who, fascinating person, but she works with, she's a counselor, but she's Brazilian. And she works with a population where basically on narcissists and what happens with narcissistic mothers and the whole experience of, it's really quite interesting because in Brazil, it's a very Catholic, very religious country. So nobody talks about these kinds of things. It's very, very forbidden. So I was really inspired by some of what her story is. And so we're talking about doing some things on, why does this keep happening to me, about, how we get trapped in the patterns with people who are just narcissistic, not just parents, but partners. Mm-hmm. And
bosses too, right?
And there you go. And bosses, and how that, talk about soul destroying, how that can trigger old shame and limiting beliefs about ourselves, and we stay stuck and we don't know how to get out of that. Yeah. So we're looking at literally doing that very soon, probably this summer, a podcast on that. So
amazing. So
that's on the immediate.
How do you manage all these things?
I know, that's the point. That's the point.
And that's coming from someone who has two full-time jobs. That and 3 boys. Yeah. So yeah, that's a handful for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So can you just tell us a little bit about how to get in touch with you, and also you are offering something to our
Yes,
group
this
too?
is really cool. So I didn't realize, Natalie, I think you'll like this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but can you see this picture of there's like this dog with the
Yeah.
sunglasses there, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So I thought I'd offer something very special for the community with Leanne. So essentially, I'm setting up something. I'm willing to do just 30 minutes with you over the phone or Zoom or Skype for just 30 UK pounds. It's very, very simple. And if you just basically send me an email, we can talk for 30 minutes. I mean, if we, I'd like to, I can send you, I'll work with you before, like I might send you a questionnaire or something, and everything is confidential. You can think about the things you might want to work on beforehand. But when we actually, I'll give you a 30-minute session, basically, for 30 pounds. And all you have to do is email me at hello@adaptfaster.com, right? So just hello@adaptfaster.com. And I mean, if you're thinking about it, fine. If you want to get in contact with me, fine. Just send me an email. But I thought I'd do something special because I wasn't sure about who would be engaged or how would that interest people. But yeah, I'd love to connect more with the community because it's really, really nice. I've spent my days in organizations, corporations, and so forth. So it's really nice to I'm getting so much energy from this. It's reminding me why I do this work.
Yeah, it is wonderful. And we definitely welcome you every Wednesday. You can come on and we have, in the other days, we have more of chat. We interact quite a bit more. So it's really that idea of re-nourishing ourselves because we're doing this work. Everyone on here is doing amazing work and giving so much of themselves, and we need to replenish. It's really phenomenal. Before I just say goodbye, I'm going to just take 1 minute I've got a couple of programs as well, and one starting actually a group program, my Thrive Zone. That's for people who are trying to figure out what they want to do in life and how to create a business or practice doing that. And I work on helping them create their vision, chart a path forward, build the community supporters, and master the skills they need to be an effective leader in their field, and then commit to change through regular, what I call power practices. And for those of you who are also already, first of all, I offer it in different formats, a self-study, group, private, or I'm doing a retreat at the Omega Institute in June. So I'm really excited about that. And then for those of you who are already well on your way on your path, I'm just launching the Change Leader Mentorship Program. This has been in the works for quite a long time, and I know some of you on here recognize this. It's really where I combine for people who are already practicing or have a business or have a community. It's helping to bring business vision, strategy, and execution mentoring with more of the kind of right brain stuff, the self-discovery, awareness, intuitive training, and personal leadership development. So if you're interested in that. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick, in case anyone wants to say something, I'm going to unmute everyone just for, okay, so if anyone wants to say a last thing before we check off, it'll take 5 minutes just to kind of say anything, and people are writing on the side. Hi, Leanne, just figured this out. I don't know who, can I ask for PTS? I'm not sure who that is. SMP 600 to me. So somebody is on here, and I'm not sure what the question is. Hi, Leanne, just figured this out. Can I ask for, it's Joanna. Okay, great. So she wants to ask for PTPSP. Have you heard of that before?
PTPSP?
PTPSP. Has anyone else heard about that?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Okay, so it could be a typo. I'm not sure. Maybe. Anyone else wanted to say anything? Doris says, whereabout are you in the UK? I'm hoping to come over sometime this summer, I think.
Yeah.
I would love to connect with you somehow. Awesome.
London. I'm in London.
Okay.
Where are you going, Doris?
Yeovil, but it's 3 hours from London, but I'm sure we'll be in London at some stage.
Yes. Be glad to see. Be lovely to see you. Absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
Doris is from South Africa, and she lives here in Montreal now. Yeah.
Oh,
so she
fantastic.
has a really.
We can do some African dancing together.
Yeah. Now it's on.
You can be in the video, Doris.
Now we're talking.
So Joanna asked about if you could elaborate where in the body, I guess, some of this PTSD is stored. I assume it's everywhere, but is there somewhere in particular it gets stored?
I can tell you the main areas of my experience are in the gut area. This is things like Crohn's disease, IBS. All these can be related to traumatic experience, but more or less it's in the nervous system. So it can manifest anywhere, really, literally. And a lot of my theory is that a lot of illness in the body can be traced to stressful experiences. Maybe not trauma, but certainly because with stress there's inflammation because there's a lot of cortisol in the system. So with inflammation, you tend to have things happening in the body where the body isn't able to manifest the antibodies. So this is where illness even colds. If you notice, you get colds when you've been working really hard, you're really tired, you haven't been taking care of yourself, you haven't been sleeping. So
Awesome.
It can manifest anywhere.
Thank you. And Jackie, you had your hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you very much and for sharing those interesting stories. And if you can repeat your website.
Yes.
So I can jot it down.
Yeah, it's adaptfaster.com, ADAPTFASTER.com, like adapting, adapt faster.
Oh.
And you can email me hello@adaptfaster.com.
Perfect.
And I'll put the link.
Posture, because you were talking about the posture. So faster. Perfect. Thank you very much. Great.
I'll put the links on the video too. But for those of you who might not see it later, that's great that you said that. Also, Susan said she had premature arthritis start due to a heavy stress. She had it in her hands. So it might be, Susan, great to connect with Joshua.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, and you asked about eye movements. The thing that I've discovered is that my work is now going really into deeper research into eye movements because the eyes connect with the brain. And it's literally the fastest way to relax is through eye movements, right? So, they're just, the reason is the eyes and the brain are very evolutionarily connected, right? Whenever you have a thought, you move your eyes, right? When you dream at night, your eyes are moving rapidly across, rapid eye movement. So there's a connection between basically stress, being able to move your eyes and being able to relieve stress because you're able to quickly process whatever it is you're stressing about. So I just leave it at that.
That's awesome. Natalie said, thanks, you speak my language. And she's also actually right now going through a lot of problems with her eyes. So I don't know if there's anything you can tell her about that, or Natalie.
Yeah, I was wondering because I'm like, oh, very interesting because it's a 2-year thing. Also related to trauma 2 years ago, stress related. And so now it's manifested into high pressure. It's a secondary cause from drops. So this eye is having trouble seeing. Right now I can see pretty good compared to what I have in the last bit, but it's very interesting. And you speak my language because all this blockage energy, I do energy work for animals and humans, and it's the same thing, and just holding that space to release, even for ourselves, right, as practitioners.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
so I get something now being released in my eye, from my eye.
Well, Natalie, what you might want to try, I'm just going to, off the top of my head, so at night when you lie down, so if you just put your fingers, literally your pointer fingers on your eyebrows and just with your eyes closed, just look up into these points and then just begin to move your eyes from left to right, right? So from left to right, right? And maybe see if that feels okay, but usually that will induce, like for sleep anxiety, those would be the eye movements I would propose. The reason why I say those eye movements for you at night is because your eyes will be relaxed, right? Because it's the end of the day. But sometimes it might be stressful. The other thing is that if you find that it's too stressful, then it could be that there's a lot of tension in your eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't want you to sort of push too hard, but it's one of those things where if there is a little bit of tension and you feel that you could sort of work through it,
Yeah, sorry.
what my experience tells me is that there's usually tension in our eyes when we do these eye movements. There's usually an issue that we're either holding on to or that is holding on to us.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's an opportunity to sort of, it's like taking a chisel and taking small pieces out of the boulder.
It's
There's
really
something to think
interesting
about.
you say this though, because at night that's what I do. Like I get so much pain, especially here, that I press, and to the point where it's painful, but like good feeling pain, and then you feel it release. So I've just been doing it, and actually I move around the whole eye or the orbit, I guess. The
Very
ball.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So
These are called nadi points in yoga for basically controlling the eyelids. These areas right here. So if you sort of, that's probably what your body, you intuitively know, your body knows to sort of do that. If you press right there.
Yeah, you can really feel it when you do that. That's quite something.
Yeah. If you press, it's a good way to relax your eyes, actually. If you press there.
that's what's making me freak again, like how awesome the body is. Like you're saying, the body has so much wisdom, because I have been doing things along these past years in my own healing that now learning about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was doing that. So intuitively, my body was telling me that. And Dahlia would know about sound healing, like just when I had a lot of digestive issues, diagnosed IBS. And then at one point I was just relaxing and just humming to myself, and then it would just calm. And now I learned that that is a form of sound healing, years later.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I can teach. I mean, there's an eye movement. I discovered, it's incredible. It's an infinity sign eye movement, basically.
Yeah,
and
the figure eight.
we could do it for 10 seconds. So everybody, I'll do it with you. If you just close your eyes for a moment, those of you who can. And just imagine someone is flashing a flashlight into your eyes and moving it like an infinity sign, but your eyes are closed. So through your closed eyelid, just begin to move your eyes like the sideways 8, right, in white, and just move your eyes all the way. And imagine the center of that infinity sign is somewhere around the center of your nose. And then just very, very gradually reverse the direction, which is always harder because we tend to lose control of the figure itself, but it's okay. Just keep moving your eyes in that sideways 8, the infinity sign, as if someone's flashing a light. So it's more like you're following it. There you go. And now just relax your eyes for a moment. Just leave your eyes closed. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And just take a moment. Bring your awareness to the back of your brain, like the very back of your head, just as if you're looking to the back of your brain for a moment. Imagine you're just looking into infinity in the back of your brain, because the brain is infinite. And now gently open your eyes, but keep your awareness as if you're looking outward through your open eyes through the back of your brain. So imagine your eyes are actually back here when you look out. Right? So imagine your eyes are here instead of here. And just notice what happens in your body. Just notice the difference in sensation, or just notice maybe the difference in vision. So, and a colleague of mine and I are working on some of this right now at a lab in Cardiff, which is north of London. It's in Wales. And we're working with technology to be able to change how we focus. We tend to focus very, very myopically on objects because of smartphones and technology. We're so focused here.
Yeah.
But when you open your focus this way, it really relaxes your body.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Really nice. Thank you very much. We're a little bit over, and anyone who had to go, I think, took off here. But anyone last thoughts, comments? Just besides an amazing thank you, Joshua.
Thank
Thank
you
you so much, Joshua.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to, as I mentioned, put all the contact information on the video, and probably take about a day before the video's up, and then any of you guys can share it or with anybody that you think might benefit from Joshua's work. And
I'll send you my card too. Yeah, baby. I'll send you my card, man.
That's great.